Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. Instead of one big topic, we're taking a deep dive into the top headlines making waves in India right now.
Great.
Kind of like your personal news bulletin, but we're really trying to uncover the crucial insights behind the stories.
Exactly. Going beyond just the surface level.
We've got a pretty fascinating mix today, actually. Everything from big corporate battles and some serious international cricket drama,
Oh, yeah, that's been heating up.
all the way to geopolitical shifts and even important debates happening in academia.
It sounds like a packed agenda.
It is. Our mission, really, is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge from these timely sources, giving you the context, the implications, stuff you don't get from just, scrolling quickly.
Indeed, and what's, I think, really fascinating here is how interconnected a lot of these stories are, even if they seem totally separate at first glance. They often reflect these broader trends, both within India and globally. It's like connecting the dots. We'll try to do that for you. It's so important with daily news, isn't it, to look beyond the immediate headline and grasp the so what.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear, we'll be sticking strictly to the factual content from our sources today. We'll aim for impartial reporting, even on topics that might feel, a bit charged.
Right. No taking sides.
Exactly. Just presenting the information clearly, comprehensively, so you can form your own informed views.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump right in. We're starting with a story that really highlights this tension, this ongoing push and pull between corporate power and media freedom in India.
A critical issue.
Definitely. So this particular situation kicked off in a Delhi civil court. There was a significant ex parte order handed down back on September 6, 2025. And ex parte, just to remind everyone, means only one side was heard before the order was issued.
Right, that's key.
And this order wasn't just some minor legal step. It immediately triggered a pretty major action from India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the INB. What happened next was, well, quite impactful and fast. The INB ministry sent out a directive telling 13 news publishers, and we're talking prominent names here like News Laundry, Ravish Kumar, Dhruv Rathi, The Wire, Akash Banerjee's The Deshbacked.
Some very well-known independent voices.
Exactly. They were told to remove specific digital content. And it wasn't a small amount. 138 YouTube videos and 83 Instagram posts, all within 5 days.
Wow, that's a huge number of items and a very tight deadline.
It really is. And it wasn't just the publishers. The ministry also formally notified Google and Meta, YouTube, and Instagram's parent companies, telling them to ensure compliance within just 36 hours of getting the notice.
So bringing the platforms in directly.
Right. The speed and scope here really tells you something about how seriously this was being pushed.
So this sweeping action, where did it actually come from? You mentioned the court order.
Yeah.
It originates from a defamation case. This was filed by Adani Enterprises Ltd, a major player in Indian business, against several journalists specifically, and also some unnamed individuals or entities. Now, what's crucial for our deep dive here is that some of the journalists named Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, Ravi Nair, Abir Dasgupta, Ayaskan Das, and Ayush Joshi, they haven't just accepted this. They've actively challenged the takedown order in court.
They're fighting back.
Yes. And Thakurta's legal team made a pretty significant argument. They contended that the original civil court directive was, and this is the quote, overly broad.
Overly broad, meaning?
Meaning it cast too wide a net, essentially. And they also pointed out something interesting. Many of the articles and posts in question had actually been publicly available since 2017.
Since 2017.
Yeah.
Okay, that does raise questions about the sudden urgency now.
Exactly. Why the rush now? The judge, responding to these appeals, actually postponed the hearing. He noted that a short delay wouldn't cause significant harm, so that's bought them a bit of time for these legal challenges to be properly heard.
A little breathing room.
Okay.
Okay, that detail about it being potentially overly broad and the delay is important. But here's where it gets really interesting, I think, legally speaking. What are experts saying about the INB ministry getting involved like this, enforcing a civil court order directly?
Well, legal experts have weighed in. They point to Rule 3.1 of the Information Technology Rules, specifically the Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code. That's the big framework for digital content.
Right, the IT rules.
Yes. And that rule explicitly requires intermediaries, so companies like Google and Meta to comply with court orders.
Okay, so the platforms have to comply. What about the ministry itself stepping in?
That's the nuance. While it's apparently rare for the IMB ministry to get directly involved in enforcing civil court orders like this, experts have clarified it's not strictly illegal, unless, of course, executive power is demonstrably misused.
I see.
In fact, IMB officials have apparently confirmed that they do act on court directives as part of their mandate to oversee digital media. So, while it might look unusual, the argument is that it's technically within the existing legal framework based on these interpretations.
W- Within the framework, but still raises eyebrows, maybe.
Yeah.
What are the wider implications, then, if this is how the rules are being interpreted?
Well, this case, it undeniably underscores these really deep tensions we're seeing between media freedom, a fundamental right, and the very real need for corporations to manage their reputation, especially in this digital age.
Right, that constant battle.
Exactly. It raises these critical questions about potential censorship, yes, but also about, legal overreach, particularly when you have these powerful corporate entities involved in legal fights against independent journalists.
Yeah.
The real insight here, I think, isn't just about Adani or these specific journalists. It's about how this whole situation could fundamentally shift the power balance between big corporations and independent media in India.
So why should you, the listener, care about this specific case?
Because this is actively testing the system. Will India's legal framework primarily protect free expression, or could it inadvertently become a tool for corporate influence to stifle critical reporting? That's the core question. The outcome of these appeals, whichever way they go, could set a really significant precedent for how digital content is regulated in India, especially when it involves powerful players and independent voices. It literally shapes the information landscape we all rely on.
A potential watershed moment, then. Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving from the courtroom to the, often equally dramatic world of international cricket.
Ah, yes, the Asia Cup.
The Asia Cup 2025. It saw quite a bit of controversy, heightened emotions, especially during that India-Pakistan group stage match in Dubai. That was September 14th.
Always a high-pressure game.
Always. And the core incident, the thing that really set things off, was India's refusal to shake hands with the Pakistani team after India won pretty decisively by 7 wickets.
Right, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, the Indian captain, Surya Kumar Yadav, SKY, and his teammates, they just walked straight off the field. The only exception was SKY greeting his batting partner, Shivam Dubey. And it wasn't, a spur-of-the-moment thing either. Apparently, even before the match started, at the coin toss, SKY deliberately avoided shaking hands with the Pakistan captain, Salman Ali Agha.
So it was planned, premeditated.
It certainly looks that way. It set a tone of tension right from the very beginning.
Okay, so how did people react to this, especially the Pakistani side?
Well, as you'd expect, the reactions were pretty strong and varied. Pakistan's coach, Mike Hesson, was quite open about his disappointment. He basically called it a breach of sporting etiquette. The spirit of the game.
Understandable from his perspective.
But then SKY, defending his team's actions later, he said he was acting under, and I quote, instructions from the BCCI and Indian government as a protest against prior incidents involving Pakistan.
Wow, okay. So he explicitly linked it to the government and past incidents. That definitely elevates it beyond just sportsmanship, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It immediately turned what could have been seen as just poor sportsmanship into a very overt political statement. The cricket pitch became a stage for, geopolitical expression.
And did it stop there? Or did things escalate further?
Oh, it escalated. It moved beyond the pitch into the post-match formalities.
Yeah.
The Pakistan captain, Salman Ali Agha, he was clearly upset and took the pretty dramatic step of skipping the post-match presentation altogether.
Skipping the presentation, that's a strong message.
It really is. His absence just fueled the drama, sent a clear signal of deep dissatisfaction, and added another layer to the whole controversy.
So formal steps were likely taken after that.
Yes, things moved quickly to formal action. The very next day, September 15th, Pakistan's team manager filed an official complaint with the ICC, the International Cricket Council.
Okay.
The complaint specifically accused the match referee, Andy Pycroft, of bias. They allege his conduct influenced the Indian team's actions.
Blaming the referee.
And they went so far as to demand his immediate removal from the tournament.
That's a serious accusation and demand. How did the ICC respond?
The ICC responded quickly, just a day later on the 16th, and they firmly rejected the request to remove Pycroft.
Rejected it flat out.
Yep. And that rejection, instead of calming things down, it prompted an even more dramatic response from Pakistan. They threatened a full-on boycott of their next match, which was against the UAE.
A boycott, wow, that would throw the whole tournament into chaos.
Exactly. They canceled their pre-match press conference, kept the players in the hotel.
Mhm.
There was widespread speculation they might actually pull out of the entire Asia Cup. The stakes suddenly got incredibly high.
So what happened? Did they go through with the boycott threat? That would have been huge.
It was a really tense moment. Everyone was watching. But eventually, a resolution was found, at least for that specific match.
Okay.
After a crucial meeting that involved former captain Ramiz Raja, the PCB chairman Mosanaki announced the team would go to the stadium and play.
Ah, so they backed down from the boycott itself.
They did. The match against the UAE was delayed by an hour because of all the drama, but Pakistan ultimately played. And here's the kicker. They played under the same referee, Andy Pycroft, they had objected to.
Oh, interesting. So the protest didn't actually change the referee assignment for that game.
Not for that game.
Yeah.
And they actually won that match quite comfortably by 41 runs, which secured their spot in the Super 4 stage.
Right.
And guess who they were set to play again in that stage?
Had to be India again, right? A virtual semifinal.
Exactly. Now, the PCB did later claim that Pycroft apologized and that the ICC agreed to investigate the whole handshake incident further, suggesting maybe some behind-the-scenes concession.
Okay. A possible compromise.
Possibly. But despite all the drama, the threats, the complaints, the high-level meetings, Pakistan's protest didn't really change the immediate course of the tournament. The matches went on.
But the underlying tension must have remained, especially with another India-Pakistan match looming.
Oh, absolutely. This whole controversy didn't just heighten tensions. It,
Right.
supercharged the atmosphere for that rematch. That next India-Pakistan game was suddenly loaded with political meaning, unresolved anger. It became much more than just cricket.
Yeah.
It's a really powerful example of how deep political issues can just seep into major sporting events, turning them into these very visible platforms for national statements and protests. Sports and politics, often impossible to separate.
A very vivid illustration indeed.
Okay, let's pivot now. We're moving into domestic politics and national security, focusing on a pretty significant speech given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Okay.
This was at a rally in Dar, Madhya Pradesh. And in this speech, the Prime Minister reignited criticism of Pakistan, referencing two specific things, something called Operation Sindoor and a recent viral video involving a Jaish-e-Mohammed commander.
Right, bringing counterterrorism to the forefront.
Exactly. This seems like a very calculated speech, aiming to stir national pride and emphasize India's stance against terrorism.
What were the specific claims he made?
Well, Prime Minister Modi asserted that Indian forces had, and I quote, swiftly dismantled terrorist infrastructure. He linked this directly as retaliation for that devastating Pahalgam attack on April 22nd.
The one that killed 26 people, mostly tourists. A terrible incident.
Yes. And Modi used very strong, emotive language. He stated that Pakistani terrorists had desecrated the vermilion of our sisters and daughters, framing this as the justification, the catalyst for what he called India's decisive military response.
That's very powerful, evocative language, clearly connecting the military action to national grief and honor.
Definitely. Now, about Operation Sindoor itself, can you elaborate on what that was?
Yes, Operation Sindoor was described as a significant cross-border military operation. It was launched on May 7th. What made it particularly notable was its scale and targets. It reportedly targeted 9 terror camps.
9 camps.
9, belonging to groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed, JEM, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lati, and Hizbul Mujahideen. And crucially, these targets weren't just in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Reports suggested the operation hit targets across Pak and potentially inside Pakistan proper.
Okay, so potentially crossing the line of control and maybe even further.
That's what was implied. It was presented as a direct, forceful response to the Pahalgam attack aimed squarely at crippling cross-border terrorism infrastructure. It signaled a very assertive counterterrorism posture.
And the Prime Minister mentioned a video as well.
Yes, and this is where it gets particularly interesting because Modi used this video as a form of evidence, or perhaps corroboration.
Okay.
There was this video circulating online showing a GEM commander identified as Masood Ilyas Kashmiri. In the video, he's quite emotional, and he's recounting the loss of Masood Azhar's family members during strikes in Bahawalpur strikes attributed to Operation Sindoor.
Wow. So a GEM commander confirming losses.
Exactly. In the footage, Kashmiri apparently confirms that Azhar's relatives were, quote, torn apart by Indian forces. Modi highlighted this as underscoring the operation's impact, its success.
Mm.
That video going viral definitely intensified scrutiny on Pakistan regarding harboring terrorist networks. It added this raw, human, albeit from the other side, dimension to the conflict narrative.
Despite that claimed success and the video, you mentioned there are lingering concerns.
Yes, despite the damage reportedly inflicted by Operation Sindoor, reports emerged around June suggesting that Pakistan might be actively trying to rebuild those destroyed camps and launch pads.
Rebuilding already. So what does that imply?
Well, it raises pretty serious questions about the long-term effectiveness, the sustainability of these kinds of counterterrorism strikes, and perhaps more worryingly, it points to the resilience of the militant infrastructure in that region.
So it's not necessarily a permanent fix, more like an ongoing cycle.
It could suggest that.
Right.
A cycle of destruction and attempted resurgence that India has to constantly manage.
And the timing of Modi's speech. You mentioned his birthday.
Yes, the remarks were delivered on his 75th birthday. Strategically, it served a dual purpose. It was a strong political statement reinforcing his image on national security and also a reaffirmation of India's military resolve.
Right.
And it was delivered alongside announcements of development projects in Madhya Pradesh, so skillfully blending national security themes with domestic governance messages.
I see.
This whole incident, Modi's speech, the video, it's definitely reignited debate in India about the counterterrorism strategy, about Pakistan's accountability, and the wider geopolitical implications. And that emotional testimony from the GEM leader really adds this complex, almost humanizing layer, reminding us of the personal stories behind these big geopolitical events.
A stark reminder indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift focus again this time to major international relations. A significant development involving the European Union and India.
Right.
It seems the EU is making a pretty clear strategic shift in how it approaches India. The main goal appears to be trying to draw India away from Russia's sphere of influence, especially given the global tensions around the war in Ukraine.
This is a big move, signaling India's grown strategic importance.
Absolutely. And it's backed by high-level commitment. We're talking European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Prime Minister Modi personally instructing their teams.
Instructing them to do what specifically?
To finalize a free trade agreement, an FTA, by the end of this year. That's a very ambitious timeline, signaling a real push to deepen bilateral ties significantly.
An FTA by year-end. That is ambitious. It suggests a major prioritization of the relationship. An FTA isn't just symbolic. It's about real economic integration.
Exactly. But here's where it gets particularly interesting context-wise. This EU charm offensive, if you will, is happening while other powers have had, let's say, a different approach recently.
Like the U.S.
Like the U.S., yeah. The U.S. has been putting pressure on India, remember. President Trump imposed those steep tariffs up to 50%.
Right. Some linked directly to India buying Russian oil.
Precisely. And even the EU itself, back in July, sanctioned an Indian refinery that was processing Russian oil, banning it from selling to Europe.
So they've used sticks before.
They have. But now, despite those past actions, despite the U.S. pressure, the EU seems to be choosing diplomacy, maybe even aggression through diplomacy over confrontation. They're proposing this new strategic agenda, emphasizing shared values, mutual interests. It feels like a distinct change in tactics.
It really does. It's a clear departure from just using sanctions. They seem to recognize that maybe a different approach is needed with India.
Right.
So instead of confrontation, they're offering economic incentives, pushing for this strategic agenda built on shared values. Von der Leyen herself said, now is the time to focus on reliable partners and double down on partnerships rooted in shared interests and guided by common values.
That's a pretty direct statement of intent. Elevating the relationship.
Absolutely. It signals they want India as a core partner, and perhaps the subtext is that isolating India over Russia might not be the most productive path for them.
So what are the wider implications of this EU strategy? What are they hoping to achieve?
Well, it seems to reflect this broader geopolitical recalibration that's happening globally, especially since the Ukraine invasion shifted so many alliances.
Makes sense.
The strategic goal for the EU appears clear. Try to counterbalance Russia's influence, but do it not just through negative pressure like sanctions, but by offering positive incentives, economic benefits, strategic cooperation with India.
A carrot instead of just a stick.
Exactly. It's a more nuanced, maybe longer-term play, trying to gently pull India closer through shared prosperity rather than trying to force its hand.
And how does this contrast with, say, the U.S. approach?
Well, it contrasts pretty starkly with the more direct, sometimes aggressive U.S. stance, particularly regarding India's relationship with Russia. It really highlights that even among Western allies, there isn't one single strategy for dealing with countries like India that prioritize strategic autonomy.
Different tactics for the same perceived problem.
Precisely. The EU is hoping that by prioritizing trade and diplomacy, they can strengthen their own partnership with India, while also, maybe subtly, encouraging a gradual shift in India's foreign policy alignment over time.
So what should you, the listener, take away from this evolving dynamic?
You should see it as a potential reshaping of global alliances. India is navigating these complex relationships with multiple major powers, the US, Russia, the EU, China.
Right.
The success or failure of this EU push, particularly the FTA and the strategic agenda, will be really pivotal. Will India move closer to the EU's orbit, or will it continue its delicate balancing act between Russia and the West? It's a major geopolitical chess match unfolding right now.
Fascinating. Okay, let's swing back to the cricket field, because apparently the drama from the Asia Cup didn't end with that group stage match.
The plot thickens.
It seems so. The tensions we talked about earlier, they've continued to escalate. Just to quickly recap, India versus Pakistan, September 14th, SKY, refuses the handshake before and after the match.
Right, the initial incident.
Then SKY explicitly frames it as a political statement, dedicating the win to the armed forces and victims of the Pahalgam attack.
Turning it into a geopolitical act.
Exactly. So that's the backdrop. What happened next?
Well, as we mentioned, the Pakistan Cricket Board, the PCB, filed those formal complaints with ACC, Asian Cricket Council, and the ICC. They alleged the match referee Pycroft influenced the snub.
Okay.
And they didn't stop there. They threatened to withdraw from future matches unless Pycroft was removed and suspended. They even suspended their own director of international cricket operations, Usman Walla, apparently, for not handling the issue quickly enough.
Suspending their own guy.
Yeah.
That shows how much pressure they were under.
Immense pressure, clearly, both internally and likely externally.
Okay, so the situation was already spiraling. But here's where it gets, frankly, quite extraordinary. The controversy has now reportedly spread to the final itself, scheduled for September 28th.
The final? How so?
There are reports, credible reports it seems, suggesting that the Indian players are considering refusing to accept the winner's trophy if it's presented by Mohsin Naqvi.
Mohsin Naqvi. He's the PCB president, right? And also head of the ACC currently.
That's the one. He holds both roles, and he is scheduled to award the medals and potentially the trophy during the final ceremony.
And the Indian players might refuse it from him. Why?
Apparently, they view his involvement as, quote, politically charged and inappropriate given recent events. Refusing the trophy from the head of the continental body, that would be an unprecedented protest.
Unprecedented is right. That moves beyond symbolism into a direct diplomatic confrontation right at the moment of triumph.
Exactly. It adds this incredibly tense layer of diplomatic friction to what's already one of cricket's most heating rivalries.
What could the consequences be if they actually go through with it?
Well, the potential refusal could obviously spark huge backlash from Pakistan, potentially deepening the divide between the two boards even further. It could poison relations for years, affecting future tours, everything. And it also raises these bigger questions, doesn't it? About sportsmanship versus political symbolism, about governance in international cricket. Where are the lines? Are they being deliberately blurred?
It forces a difficult conversation about the role of sport in international relations.
For sure. So for you listening, as that final approaches, all eyes will be on this. Will India follow through? And how will the ACC and ICC handle this growing unrest between two absolute giants of the sport? It's a live situation, really showing that tightrope walk between sports and politics.
Absolutely fascinating and potentially explosive.
Okay, let's change pace dramatically now. From the cricket pitch to outer space, a much more positive story, this one, about partnership and alignment.
Space collaboration.
Yes, between India and the United States. They've apparently entered a new, exciting phase of space cooperation. This was marked by a big event at India House in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
The event was titled, fittingly, India-USA Space Collaboration, the Frontiers of a Futuristic Partnership. And they highlighted some recent successes, things like the joint NASA-ISRO-NISAR satellite.
Ah, yes, the Earth observation satellite.
And Axiom Mission 4, which significantly sent an Indian astronaut, Shubhanshu Shukla, to the International Space Station.
That was a major milestone, sending an Indian astronaut on a commercial mission.
Huge. So these aren't just theoretical plans. They're showcasing real results from working together.
And what was the general sentiment? What did the leaders say?
Well, India's ambassador, Vinay Quatra, he described the partnership as a dynamic platform for science, tech advancement, and, importantly, commercial cooperation, too.
Right, the commercial aspect is growing.
He really emphasized India's reputation for cost-effective missions, the frugal engineering approach,
India's strong suit in space.
and expressed a lot of optimism about future joint human spaceflight initiatives. So looking beyond just robotic missions.
That's ambitious, and NASA's view.
Dr. Karen St. Germain from NASA praised the NISAR mission specifically. She called it a model of international collaboration, highlighting how sharing expertise and resources really accelerates scientific progress for everyone involved. Faster together than alone.
Makes perfect sense. The synergy is powerful.
And they brought in the human element, too. There was a virtual panel called Moments in Orbit, featuring astronauts Sunita Williams, Nick Hague, Butch Wilmore, and Shubhanshu Shukla himself.
Oh, cool. What did they talk about?
They shared personal stories, about the intense training, what life is really like up there on the ISS. Give it a very human touch.
Must have been fascinating.
Shukla, reflecting on his journey, called it a testament to the strength of global partnerships, and also, importantly, to India's rising role in space exploration, connecting his personal experience to the bigger national picture.
A powerful moment for India's space program. Who attended this event? Was it just government and space agencies?
No, apparently it drew a really broad crowd. Government folks, industry leaders, academics, people from think tanks.
So wide interest.
Which really underscored how this cooperation isn't just about launching satellites anymore. It's expanding into commercial ventures, shared tech, even these complex crewed missions.
And there's likely a strategic dimension to this as well.
Absolutely. Analysts pointed that out. Both India and the U.S. are likely looking at this partnership partly as a way to counterbalance China's growing influence and ambitions in space.
Right. The geopolitical angle of the new space race.
Exactly. It's not just science for science's sake. It's about strategic positioning, securing access, ensuring a stable environment in space.
So what does this deepening partnership mean for India's overall standing in space?
Well, India's recent achievements have already been huge, right? The Chandrayaan lunar landing was a massive success. The upcoming Gaganyaan human spaceflight mission is highly anticipated.
Definitely establishing itself as a major player.
India is rapidly positioning itself as a key player, not just technically capable, but also cost-effective in this growing global space economy. These aren't just one-offs. They're building serious momentum.
And the closer ties with the U.S. amplify this.
Massively. This deepening relationship doesn't just boost India's technological capabilities by giving access to U.S. expertise in tech. It also crucially opens doors for India's private space sector to grow.
Fostering that commercial ecosystem.
Yes. And it strengthens geopolitical alignment. So it's multifaceted, better tech, economic growth, and strategic positioning.
So for you listening, what's the key takeaway here?
It's that this evolving partnership reflects a shared vision, a commitment to pushing boundaries in innovation and international cooperation in space. It invites you to think about the exciting future of space exploration, sure, but also its very real impact on global power dynamics down here on Earth.
A very forward-looking development.
Okay, let's come back down to Earth,
Yeah.
specifically to the world of academia in India. There's an important debate brewing there.
Regarding curriculum.
Yes, specifically the undergraduate mathematics curriculum proposed by the University Grants Commission, the UGC.
The UGC, right, the main regulatory body for higher education.
Exactly. And this isn't a minor disagreement. Over 900 mathematicians and educators have signed a petition urging the UGC to actually withdraw this new draft curriculum.
900, that's a significant number. What are their concerns?
They're citing grave defects in the draft, warning that it could seriously harm future generations of students if implemented. That's strong language, grave defects.
That certainly is. What's the context here? Was this draft developed collaboratively?
Well, the draft was released last month. It's part of a much bigger curriculum overhaul that the UGC is undertaking across 9 different subjects. But this math curriculum has sparked particular concern.
Okay.
The petition doesn't just criticize, it makes a specific demand. It calls for a new committee to be formed, made up of, quote, expert mathematicians and experienced undergraduate teachers to completely redraft the curriculum from scratch.
So they want the current draft scrapped and the process restarted with different people involved.
Essentially, yes. The critics argue the current draft has serious errors of both omission and commission. They feel it's not just an incremental update, it's a drastic and, in their view, poorly conceived shift from previous approaches. A step backward, they say.
Can you give some specific examples of these alleged deficiencies? What are the mathematicians pointing to?
Yes, and this is where it gets quite detailed. Mahan M.J., he's a respected professor at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, also a Shanti Swar Bhatnagar awardee, so a top scientist.
A credible voice?
Very. He highlighted specific problems. For instance, he said algebra, which is fundamental, is severely underrepresented. He suggested it needs at least 3 dedicated courses for proper grounding.
3 courses for algebra alone. What else?
Real analysis, another absolute cornerstone of higher mathematics, essential for calculus, physics. The draft apparently allocates only 1 semester to it.
1 semester for real analysis. That does sound thin.
He called it grossly inadequate. The petition actually recommends 3 to 4 courses in analysis to ensure proper depth and rigor. So we're talking about potentially missing entire years' worth of foundational material, according to these experts.
These aren't minor quibbles, then. They sound like major structural concerns about core subjects.
Exactly. And the concerns go beyond just algebra and analysis. They say applied mathematics, other core areas also get insufficient attention or are treated superficially.
So the overall worry is?
The worry is that this curriculum, as drafted, simply won't prepare students adequately. Not for advanced study in STEM fields, nor for professional jobs that need strong quantitative skills. They fear significant dilution of mathematical rigor and depth.
Which could have long-term consequences for India's scientific and technological capabilities.
Precisely. That's the underlying fear, damaging the pipeline of talent.
So what does this backlash tell us more broadly about education policy, perhaps?
Well, this unified pushback from over 900 experts really underscores how crucial expert-led curriculum development is. You need people who deeply understand the subject and teaching it at that level.
Right.
It also highlights the risks of top-down reforms, especially if they bypass or ignore the subject specialist. Quality can be easily compromised, leading to problems down the road.
So the petitioners are advocating for?
They're advocating for a process that's more inclusive, collaborative, and fundamentally academically sound. They want to safeguard the quality of education and uphold India's strong tradition in mathematical sciences, which is historically a real strength for India.
Makes sense. Has the UGC responded yet?
Not publicly, as far as we know. So the future of this proposed curriculum is currently up in the air, facing this significant expert opposition.
So for you listening, this might seem like an internal academic debate,
But it really illustrates the critical role expertise plays in shaping education. And those decisions directly impact the skills and knowledge of future generations, potentially affecting you or your children or people you know. It's about the foundation of future learning.
a really important issue to watch.
Definitely. Okay, next up, we're shifting back to geopolitics and regional security, specifically in West Asia. There's been a development with potentially major implications.
Okay, what's happened?
Pakistan has reportedly decided to extend its nuclear umbrella to cover the United Arab Emirates, UAE.
Pakistan extending its nuclear umbrella to the UAE. That's huge.
It is. And this comes alongside Pakistan signing a formal defense pact with Saudi Arabia. So you're seeing this coalescing defensive alignment.
Wow. Okay, that definitely changes the strategic landscape in the Gulf. What does this mean for India?
For India, it introduces, well, significant new complexities into its security calculations, especially if, hypothetically, there were a future conflict with Pakistan. Because if the UAE is now formally under Pakistan's nuclear deterrence, it raises the possibility that any military action India might take against Pakistan
Can be seen as aggression against the UAE, too.
Exactly, even if unintended. And that could dramatically escalate regional tensions, potentially drawing in third parties like Saudi Arabia, given the defense pact. It makes any potential conflict much broader and far more unpredictable. The UAE's proximity also complicates things physically.
That's a major strategic headache for New Delhi. So what does India need to do now? How does it recalibrate?
Well, it faces a real challenge.
Yeah.
Diplomatically, the immediate need is probably to reinforce its own strong ties with both the UAE and Saudi Arabia. India has deep economic links, a large diaspora.
Right. Millions of Indians work there.
So India needs to make sure its interests and intentions are seen as distinct from whatever Pakistan's new security commitments are. Keep those lines clear.
And strategically, militarily.
Strategically, India might need to revise its own nuclear and conventional doctrines to factor in this expanded defensive coalition. That likely means enhancing back-channel communication, establishing clearer risk reduction measures with Pakistan and its new allies to prevent any miscalculation.
Avoiding accidental escalation becomes even more critical.
Absolutely. And on the military hardware front.
Well, India is likely to accelerate its modernization efforts, probably focusing on precision strike capabilities, the ability to hit specific targets accurately while minimizing collateral damage.
To avoid widening the conflict.
Precisely. And also investing heavily in robust missile defense systems. Lessons from things like Operation Sindoor, those targeted strikes, become even more relevant, emphasizing swift, intelligence-led actions that achieve objectives without triggering a broader war. Surgical precision is key.
That makes sense. Does India's broader geopolitical positioning offer any leverage here? Its relationships with other major powers?
It could. For instance, if relations with China were to improve, even slightly, always a big if, that might free up some strategic bandwidth for India to focus more on West Asia.
Right.
And continued partnerships with Russia, maybe for certain military tech, and especially with the U.S., for advanced technology and diplomatic support, offer India crucial flexibility and leverage.
Badura.
Israel's expertise in intelligence and counterterrorism is also a significant asset for India in managing complex regional threats like this. It's about leveraging multiple partnerships.
So it's a complex balancing act.
It truly is. India has to navigate a much more intricate nuclear chessboard now. It needs to balance deterrence, showing strength and resolve, with constant, careful diplomacy to manage risks.
And the human cost is always a factor.
Immense. Those millions of Indian expats, the deep economic ties with the Gulf. India simply cannot afford missteps that could destabilize the region or trigger unintended escalation. It really reveals this delicate dance of nuclear deterrence, shifting alliances, and the potentially devastating consequences.
A very sobering development. Okay, let's conclude today's deep dive with a final story. This one focuses on aviation safety and the pursuit of justice after a tragedy.
Okay.
This involves the crash of Air India Flight AI171 in Ahmedabad. The father of Captain Sumit Sabharwal, the pilot who died in the crash, is calling for a different kind of investigation.
What's he asking for?
His name is Pushkaraj Sabharwal. He's 91 years old. He's demanding a court-led investigation under Rule 12 of the aircraft rules. He's deeply critical of the initial preliminary inquiry that was done under Rule 9.
Why the criticism of the first inquiry? What does he feel went wrong?
Well, in a very detailed letter to the Civil Aviation Ministry and the AAIB, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, he accused the authorities of basically shielding the aircraft manufacturers, Boeing and GE, while unfairly blaming the pilots prematurely.
Shielding the manufacturers. That's a strong accusation.
Very. He even drew a parallel to the Boeing 737 AST disasters, arguing that the real safety flaws there only came out after a full U.S. congressional probe, not just the initial investigations. He's suggesting a similar independent scrutiny is needed here.
Okay. What did the AAIB's initial report actually find?
The preliminary report cleared Boeing and GE of technical faults. It stated that both fuel switches had moved to the off position after takeoff.
Fuel switches moved to off. That would obviously cause the engines to fail.
Exactly. And this finding, combined with a reported cockpit exchange where Captain Sabharwal apparently denied touching the switches, quickly led to media speculation focusing heavily on pilot error.
Ah, the narrative shifted quickly to the pilot.
Yes, and the family, particularly the father, vehemently contests this. He believes it was convenient scapegoating.
So how does Mr. Sabharwal rebut this narrative?
He has absolutely condemned those media reports, calling them unfounded and speculative. He specifically refuted what he called unfounded claims about his son's mental health, which apparently surfaced in some reports. He pointed to his son's spotless 25-year flying record, over 15,600 flight hours, including nearly 8,600 on the Boeing 787 specifically. He argues this record flatly contradicts any idea of incompetence or instability.
A strong defense based on experience.
Yes. And he goes further, alleging misconduct in the investigation itself. He claims cockpit glimpse recordings were selectively leaked to the media and that the AAIB's preliminary findings weren't truly objective, leading to that unfair narrative.
Serious allegations about the process itself. So what is he demanding now, specifically?
He's demanding an independent, transparent process. He wants an independent panel set up to reinvestigate.
What kind of panel?
He suggested it should include a retired Supreme Court judge for impartiality, aviation experts for technical knowledge, and importantly, a representative from Air India's pilot's body to ensure the pilot's perspective is properly considered.
A multidisciplinary independent panel.
Exactly. He stressed the need to look beyond just pilot conduct. investigate aircraft design, maintenance history, environmental factors. A truly holistic view. He believes only that kind of independent approach can uncover the full truth.
It sounds like a plea for a much broader, less prejudged investigation. The crash itself was horrific, wasn't it?
Devastating.
Yeah.
June 12th. It claimed 241 of the 242 people on board, plus another 19 people on the ground, one of India's worst air disasters.
It's tragic.
Mr. Safarwal urged the ministry to clarify that the initial Rule 9 report wasn't meant to assign blame, and that the media stories were just speculation. He warned against repeating mistakes, like with the 737 MAX, where accountability only came after a second crash.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners from this plea?
His appeal really underscores the fundamental need for impartial, expert-led investigations after such tragedies. It's not just about justice for the victims and their families, though that's paramount. It's also about restoring public trust in aviation safety and ensuring lessons are truly learned to prevent future accidents. It's a reminder of the immense responsibility involved and the often long, painful search for truth.
A very powerful and important final point.
Absolutely. Well, what a range of stories we've covered today, from media freedom battles and intense cricket politics
Right across the spectrum.
to major geopolitical shifts,
Yeah.
debates over math education, nuclear strategy, and finally the search for truth in aviation safety. Each one, when you dig in, reveals so much complexity and has real implications for India and often the wider world.
It really does. And this kind of deep dive into the headlines, I think it highlights that ongoing tension, doesn't it? Between powerful interests, the public's right to know, and just the basic pursuit of truth in a world that's saturated with information. It really raises an important question for you listening. How do we, as informed citizens, actually navigate this? How do we find the context and nuance when it's often scarce?
That's the challenge.
And maybe something to ponder. Which of these headlines we discussed today do you think will have the most significant long-term impact? And what further questions does it spark for you as you think about the future?
That's a great thought to end on, a call for continued critical thinking. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into today's top stories. We hope it encourages your own curiosity and engagement with the news. Until next time.